The sky above Willow Creek Cemetery was a roiling expanse of slate-gray clouds, the kind that seemed to press down on the earth with the weight of unshed tears. A bitter wind tore through the bare branches of ancient oaks, carrying the faint wail of distant sirens that faded into the silence of the gathered mourners. Rain lashed the ground in relentless sheets, soaking through the dress blues of the officers standing in perfect formation, their faces carved from stone despite the cold seeping into their bones. At the heart of the gathering, a flag-draped coffin gleamed under the dim light, its polished surface reflecting the flickering grief of those who stood V.Y. Gill. Beside it, a Belgian Malinois named Titan strained against his leash, his dark eyes locked on the casket, a low, anguished whine escaping his throat. The dog's handler, Officer Elena Martinez, tightened her grip, whispering futile reassurances as Titan's body trembled not from the chill, but from a primal, unspoken sorrow. In that moment, as the first notes of a bugle pierced the air, Titan broke free, lunging toward the coffin with a purpose that silenced the crowd. What happened next would etch itself into the hearts of everyone present, a testament to a bond forged in sacrifice and unshakable loyalty. The rain had begun at dawn, a steady drumbeat that matched the cadence of grief in Willow Creek. The town, nestled in the rolling hills of upstate New York, was no stranger to loss. Its history was marked by floods, wars, and the quiet tragedies of small-town life. But this day was different. The funeral of Officer Daniel "Danny" Sullivan was more than a farewell. It was a reckoning, a moment that laid bare the cost of courage. Danny, a former Marine and a 6-year veteran of the Willow Creek Police Department, had been a fixture in the community, a man whose easy smile and quiet strength had earned him the trust of everyone from schoolchildren to hardened cops. His death, 3 days prior, had shaken the town to its core, and the presence of Titan, his K-9 partner, only deepened the wound. The cemetery was a sea of uniforms, local police, state troopers, even a handful of Marines in dress blues, their faces etched with the stoic grief of those who'd seen too much. Danny's family sat in the front row under a sagging canopy, his mother, Margaret, clutching a rosary, her eyes hollow with disbelief. His younger brother, Liam, stared at the ground, his jaw tight, as if willing the earth to swallow his pain. A framed photograph of Danny rested beside the coffin, capturing him in his police uniform, his hazel eyes glinting with the faintest trace of mischief. Next to it, a velvet cushion displayed his medals. 2 from his tours in Iraq, 1 for valor from the department, awarded posthumously for the act that had claimed his life. Titan, the Belgian Malinois who had been Danny's shadow for 5 years, was a study in restless anguish. His sleek, rain-soaked fur glistened as he paced at the edge of the gathering, his ears pinned forward, his nose twitching as if searching for a scent that no longer existed. Elena Martinez, tasked with handling him, felt the leash strain against her palm. "Easy, Titan," she murmured, her voice barely audible over the rain. But Titan wasn't listening. His gaze never wavered from the coffin, and his low, insistent whines cut through the murmurs of the crowd. Chief Rebecca Lawson, standing near the chaplain, gave Elena a subtle nod, a silent order to keep the dog under control while honoring his OBVYS grief. Everyone knew Titan's story, how he and Danny had become inseparable, 2 souls bound by shared scars and an unspoken promise to protect each other. But no one was prepared for what Titan would do next. 6 years earlier, the Iraqi desert had been a furnace, the air thick with dust and the constant threat of ambush. Sergeant Daniel Sullivan, then 24, moved through the streets of Fallujah with his military working dog, Bravo, a German shepherd whose nose had saved their unit countless times. The sun baked their gear, sweat stinging Danny's eyes as he scanned rooftops for snipers, trusting Bravo to detect the chemical signature of hidden explosives. "Good boy, Bravo," Danny would whisper, his voice steady despite the tension coiling in his gut. That trust was rewarded one blistering afternoon when Bravo froze, then sat abruptly, his signal for danger. Danny radioed the warning, halting the patrol just as a buried IED was uncovered. But the insurgents had planned for discovery as secondary to VYC, hidden in a nearby alley, detonated as the team moved to secure the area. The explosion was a blur of heat and chaos. Danny remembered only fragments: Bravo's body shielding him, the searing pain in his side, the weight of debris pinning him to the ground. When he woke in a field hospital, his left arm was a map of shrapnel scars, and his ribs were taped so tightly he could barely breathe. Bravo was gone, his sacrifice the only reason Danny had served VY Vet. The loss haunted him, a wound deeper than the ones that ended his military career. 2 years later, after surgeries and grueling physical therapy, Danny joined the Willow Creek Police Department, seeking purpose in a world that felt hollow without Bravo's steady presence. He hadn't intended to work with dogs again, and memories were too raw, the guilt too heavy. But fate had other plans. During a raid on a meth lab in an abandoned mill, officers found a malnourished Belgian Malinois chained to a rusted pipe in the basement. The dog, barely more than a skeleton, had been used as a guard by the dealers, starved to keep him VY Sias, beaten when he failed to intimidate. Yet when Danny approached, the dog didn't snarl or lunge. He pressed himself against the wall, trembling, his amber eyes meeting Danny's with a resignation that mirrored Danny's own. Against the advyc of the K9 trainers, who deemed the dog too broken, Danny volunteered to take him in. He named him Titan, for the strength he saw buried beneath the fear. Their bond was slow to form, built on patience and shared silence. Titan followed Danny at a wary distance, his dark form a constant shadow in the small apartment they shared. The breakthrough came one night when Danny woke from a nightmare, gasping, the explosion in Fallujah replaying in VYVYD detail. Titan, who had been sleeping across the room, approached cautiously, then placed a paw on Danny's scarred arm, holding it there as if anchoring him to the present. From that moment, they were inseparable. Within a year, Titan was certified as a K9, his intelligence and loyalty transforming him into one of the department's finest. Together, Danny and Titan developed a language of glances and subtle gestures, a partnership forged in mutual healing. The crisis that claimed Danny's life began with a storm that refused to relent. For 6 days, rain battered Willow Creek, swelling the Maple River into a churning beast that devoured bridges and flooded homes. The town's emergency SARE VYCES were stretched to the breaking point, evacuating neighborhoods and reinforcing levees. At 6:15 a.m., on the day of the disaster, a desperate call came over the radio. Willow Creek Middle School, perched on a bluff above the river, was at risk. Engineers had detected cracks in the aging dam 3 miles upstream. If it failed, the school and the 200 students and staff inside would be swept away. Danny and Titan were already on duty, Haviwang spent the night rescuing families from flooded homes. Without hesitation, they sped toward the school, their patrol SUV battling sheets of rain that blinded the windshield. When they arrived, the scene was pandemonium. Teachers herded students toward buses, parents shouted for their children, and the river's roar drowned out all but the most urgent commands. The water had reached the school's parking lot, lapping at the tires of parked cars. Principal Sarah Nguyen met Danny at the entrance, her face pale. "We've evacuated most of the building," she shouted, "but MS. Harper and 4 students are missing." They were in the music room in the basement when the alarm sounded. Danny's heart sank. The basement was already flooding, the ground floor ankle-deep in muddy water. He and Titan pushed inside, the dim corridors lit only by flickering emergency lights. The air smelled of damp concrete and fear. Near the gymnasium, Titan froze, his ears pricked, then barked sharply, bolting toward the stairwell to the basement. Danny followed, his boots splashing through the rising water. At the top of the stairs, he stopped cold. The stairwell was a black pit, water surging halfway up the steps. Faint cries echoed from below. Keying his radio, Danny's voice was steady despite the dread coiling in his chest. "Dispatch, this is K9-7. Located missing teacher and students in basement, West Wing." Water rising fast. Need water rescue ASAP. The response was a gut punch. All rescue teams were 20 minutes out, delayed by flooded roads. There was no time to wait. Titan, find passage, Danny commanded. The dog plunged into the water, his powerful strokes cutting through the murk. Danny took a breath and followed, the cold shocking his system as he submerged into the flooded stairwell. The basement was a disorienting maze, VY stability near zero. Debris swirled around them, sheet music, broken chairs, a child's backpack. Danny felt Titan's fur brush his hand, the dog guiding him through the darkness. Titan swam with purpose, his instincts VY gating obstacles Danny couldn't see. Twice the dog pushed Danny aside, steering him away from collapsing ceiling tiles. They found MS. Harper and the students Amelia, Noah, Ethan, and little Mia clinging to a piano that had wedged against a wall. The water was chest high, and Mia, only 10, was shivering, her lips blue. "We're getting you out," Danny said, his voice calm despite the tremor in his hands. "One at a time." "Titan lead." The dog barked once, then turned, swimming back toward the stairwell. Danny lifted Mia onto his shoulders, her small arms gripping his neck. The current was stronger now, the building groaning under the strain. Titan guided them through the submerged corridor, avoiding a fallen beam that could have crushed them. At the stairs, Danny handed Mia to Officer Martinez, who had arrived with other responders. "I'm going back," he said, already turning. The second and third trips were harder, the water deeper, the current VY size. Noah and Ethan were VY-er, their fear making them cling tightly. Titan VY gated with uncanny precision, sensing structural weaknesses before they gave way. By the fourth trip, the school was collapsing. A distant roar signaled the dam's partial failure, sending a surge of water toward the building. Danny and Titan reached MS. Harper just as the flood hit, slamming Danny against a wall. His VY shone blurred, but he saw Titan grab Harper's jacket in his teeth, pulling her toward the stairwell. They were nearly there when the ceiling buckled. A slab of concrete and rebar crashed down, blocking their path. "Titan, take her!" Danny shouted, VYing Harper toward the dog. Titan understood, dragging her through the narrowing gap. Danny braced against the debris, buying them seconds. The last thing he saw was Titan's amber eyes, wide with desperation, before the ceiling collapsed, trapping him in the darkness. Titan delivered Harper to safety, his fur matted with mud, his breathing ragged. But the moment she was in the paramedic's hands, he spun back toward the flooded entrance, a guttural howl tearing from his throat. Martinez grabbed his harness, but Titan's strength was feral, his nails scraping the floor as he fought to return. "Titan, no!" she yelled, her voice breaking. The dog broke free, DVYing into the water, swimming in frantic circles, DVYing repeatedly to search for Danny. It took 3 officers to drag him back, his howls echoing over the roar of the flood. For hours, Titan stood VY gill at the water's edge, ignoring the rain, the shelter, the food offered by rescuers. His barks turned to mournful wails, a sound that chilled even the most hardened responders. "It's like he's calling his name," a paramedic whispered. Martinez stayed with him, her own grief mirrored in the dog's unyielding watch. When the rescue team finally reached Danny, 14 hours later, they found him in a pocket of air he'd created by wedging debris against a wallen act that had saved Harper but left him no escape. Titan approached his body in silence, nuzzling his hand, then sat beside him, head bowed, as if standing guard one last time. At the funeral, the chaplain's words about duty and sacrifice were nearly drowned out by Titan's insistent whines. Martinez struggled to hold him as the honor guard approached the coffin. Danny's brother, Liam, had just finished a halting eulogy, his voice cracking as he spoke of Danny's bond with Titan, when the dog's demeanor shifted. With a sudden lunge, Titan broke free, the leash slipping through Martinez's fingers. He streaked toward the coffin, his movements deliberate, almost reverent. Gasps rippled through the crowd, but Chief Lawson raised a hand, stopping anyone from intervening. Titan circled the coffin, nose working, as if confirming what his heart refused to accept. Then, with a grace that belied his size, he leaped onto the casket, his paws landing softly on the flag. He turned in a slow circle, then lay down over where Danny's heart would be, his nose pressed against the fabric. A soft whimper escaped him, a sound so raw it brought tears to even the stoic Marines in attendance. "Why is he so sad?" Mia, seated with MS. Harper asked, her small voice carrying. "Because he loves Danny," Harper whispered, her own eyes glistening. As the chaplain concluded, Titan's posture shifted. He stood, his movements precise, and opened a pouch on his tactical vest with his teeth. From it, he extracted a worn challenge coin Danny's from a rock, its edges smoothed by years of touch. Titan placed it gently on the flag, nudging it until it rested perfectly over Danny's heart. Liam choked back a sob. "He always carried that," he said it kept him grounded. Then, in a moment that stole the breath of everyone present, Titan raised his right paw to his forehead in a perfect military salute. "He taught him that," Liam whispered, "for covert ops when they couldn't speak." The salute held, steady and dignified, until a Marine who'd served with Danny stepped forward, returning the gesture. "Mission complete, brother," he said softly. "You both did us proud." The 21-gun salute followed, the shots cracking through the rain. Titan didn't flinch, his body statue-like atop the coffin, his eyes fixed forward. When taps began, his ears pricked, his posture formal, as if recognizing the ritual Danny had taught him. The notes hung in the air, mingling with the soft patter of rain, and officers wept openly, their composure shattered by the dog's unwavering devotion. When it was time to fold the flag, Martinez approached. "Titan, guard change," she said, using Danny's command. The dog stepped down reluctantly, standing beside her as the honor guard folded the flag and presented it to Margaret. She clutched it, then whispered to Liam, "Titan should have it. Danny would want that." The pallbearers carried the coffin to the grave, Titan walking in perfect heel, his steps measured. As the casket descended, he raised his paw in one final salute, a soft whine escaping him of farewell and acceptance. 3 weeks later, Titan retired with full honors. Liam adopted him, bringing him to the family's farmhouse where Danny had grown up. "He's all I have left of him," Liam said, scratching Titan's ears. The dog's retirement ceremony was attended by the entire department, his collar adorned with a medal for SAVYing 5 lives and Danny's challenge coin. MS. Harper and Mia VY sided often, and Titan's demeanor softened in Mia's presence, his eyes brightening as she hugged him. "He remembers," Mia said, and Liam nodded, tears in his eyes. "He'll never forget." The story of Titan's loyalty spread, inspiring the Willow Creek Police to create the Sullivan-Titan Protocol, emphasizing the emotional bonds that make K-9 teams extraordinary. Titan lived out his days with Liam, lying beside Danny's old boots, a quiet guardian of a legacy that would never fade.